The morning sun was shining brightly, its warm light bouncing off the glass windows of the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Inside the building, it was a busy day, just like any other. Some agents were walking quickly through the halls, carrying folders, files, and briefcases. Voices filled the air, with short conversations and hurried footsteps, creating a rhythm that almost felt like a dance. Everything was running like clockwork. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Until Buddy arrived. He was a medium-sized dog, his white fur stained with dirt from the streets, and his body thin from days of wandering. But there was something unusual about him. He did not look lost. He looked determined. With steady steps, he walked straight to the tall glass doors at the FBI entrance and began to bark. His barks weren't loud or aggressive. They were sharp and steady, like he was trying to talk, like he was asking for help. At first, no one paid attention. A few agents gave him a quick look and then moved on, thinking he was just another stray looking for food. But Buddy didn't leave. He stood his ground, his eyes wide with urgency, as if he had come with a message. Among the many agents, one stopped. Her name was Lucy Taylor. She was a young FBI agent who had only joined the team recently. She had been on her way to grab a cup of coffee when she heard the barking. At first, she didn't think much of it, but then she looked into Buddy's eyes and something inside her shifted. "Hey, what are you doing here, boy?" Lucy whispered, walking toward him slowly so she wouldn't scare him. Buddy didn't run. He stood still, watching her every move. When she got closer, he stopped barking, as if he knew she was finally listening. Lucy noticed how tired he looked. His ribs showed through his thin fur, and his paws were muddy and bruised. He had clearly traveled a long way. Feeling sympathy, Lucy pulled out a small bottle of water from her coat and poured some into a cap. She held it out to him. Buddy hesitated, then leaned down and drank quickly, showing how thirsty he was. As he drank, Lucy felt something she couldn't explain. A strange connection. Like this wasn't just a dog, but someone who had come to her for a reason. Then Buddy did something unexpected. He gently grabbed the sleeve of Lucy's jacket with his teeth and tugged. It wasn't rough. It was soft, almost like he was asking her to come with him. Lucy frowned, confused. "You want to show me something?" she asked, even though she knew he couldn't answer. But Buddy tugged again, insistent, and Lucy felt a strong pull in her heart. She followed. Lucy had only been with the FBI for a short time, but she was not someone who ignored her gut feelings. And right now her instincts were screaming that this dog was different. He didn't just need food or shelter. He needed her help. His eyes, his behavior, the way he looked back at her, it all seemed to mean something. She glanced around, hoping someone else would notice. Maybe someone would agree with her. But all she got were confused stares. Then her supervisor, Michael Daniels, spotted her. "Taylor, what do you think you're doing?" he said firmly, walking over with a stern look. "We don't have time to play with stray dogs. Get back inside. We've got more important work to do." Lucy stood up straight, but she couldn't ignore the dog. Buddy kept tugging on her jacket, not giving up. "Sir," she said carefully, trying to stay calm, "this dog isn't acting like a stray. He's trying to show me something. Just look at him." Michael crossed his arms and sighed, clearly annoyed. "It's just a dog, Taylor. If you want to rescue animals, do it on your own time. Right now, we have real problems to deal with." Lucy felt the sting of his words, but she also felt something stronger. Her belief that Buddy had a reason for being there. She met Michael's eyes and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I need to see where he's taking me. If I'm wrong, I'll take full responsibility." Before Michael could argue, Buddy started moving again, down the sidewalk, turning his head every few steps to make sure Lucy was still behind him. And she was. Each step she took made her feel more certain. Buddy wasn't just a stray dog. He was leading her somewhere. His eyes looked back at her now and in them she saw something she didn't even see in most people: trust, urgency, and a quiet kind of hope. As they moved farther away from the busy FBI building, the streets became quieter. The buildings were older. The noise of the city faded behind them. Lucy talked to Buddy as they walked, even though she knew he wouldn't respond with words. "What is it, Buddy? What do you want me to see? Why me?" Buddy said nothing, but he didn't stop. His silent determination was all the answer she needed. And for some reason, Lucy trusted him, more than she trusted some of her colleagues. Back at the FBI building, Michael Daniels was still watching from a distance. He was the head of the San Antonio division and known for being strict. He didn't like distractions. Seeing Lucy follow a dirty street dog made him shake his head in frustration. "She's going to get herself into trouble," he muttered to Ryan Edwards, the team's technical analyst, who stood nearby. Ryan, a young man with glasses and a thoughtful look, was watching too. "I don't know, sir," he said, adjusting his glasses. "That dog is acting strange. He doesn't look lost. He looks like he knows where he's going." Michael scoffed. "It's a dog, Ryan. It doesn't know anything. It's probably just hungry." Still, he didn't take his eyes off them. Something about the way that dog moved. It was unsettling. Buddy didn't act like a normal stray. He wasn't begging. He wasn't wandering. He was leading Lucy with a focus and purpose that didn't make sense. And Michael, despite his doubts, couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening. "She's not going to stop, is she?" Michael muttered to himself more than to Ryan, watching Lucy follow the strange dog with steady steps. "Doesn't look like it," Ryan replied, a slight smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He was not someone who usually got involved in field operations, but something about this moment pulled him in. Something about the dog felt different. Michael raised an eyebrow, surprised by Ryan's interest. Ryan was the quiet type, focused on screens and data, rarely offering opinions about anything outside of tech. But now even he seemed curious about the dog, about Buddy. Ryan shrugged. "Maybe we should give it a chance." Michael let out a heavy sigh. He was a man of logic, of facts. He didn't believe in coincidences or gut feelings. But the dog's behavior, it was starting to make even him question things. The way it walked, the way it kept looking back at Lucy, it was not acting like any stray he had ever seen. "All right," Michael said reluctantly, grabbing his coat. "Let's follow them. But if this turns out to be a waste of time, Torres is going to regret dragging me out of my office." Ryan simply nodded, slinging his backpack over his shoulder as the two men followed a short distance behind Lucy and Buddy. They stayed just far enough not to disturb them, but close enough to keep up. Michael couldn't stop analyzing the dog. It didn't wander or sniff around like it was lost. Every step was careful, like Buddy had a destination in mind. He kept glancing back at Lucy, making sure she was still with him. As they moved through the city, the scenery began to change. The clean, polished government buildings gave way to older streets. The sidewalks were cracked. The alleys grew narrower. Graffiti covered the walls, and the air grew heavy with a metallic, damp smell. Michael began to feel something unfamiliar: doubt. What if this dog really was trying to lead them somewhere? What if Lucy had been right to trust him? The thought made him uneasy. Beside him, Ryan kept watching everything with sharp eyes. "Don't you find it strange, boss?" he asked, his voice cutting through the silence. "That dog isn't lost. He's leading us." Michael glanced at Ryan, visibly uncomfortable with the idea. "It's just a dog," he repeated, as if trying to convince himself, but the words felt weaker this time. Then Buddy stopped in front of a narrow alley. He turned and looked at Lucy, as if asking, "Are you ready to keep going?" Michael paused. Maybe, just maybe, This dog had something important to reveal. Buddy stepped forward with purpose, his pace quickening. Lucy followed closely, the weight of her decision settling on her shoulders. Behind her, Michael and Ryan kept pace in silence, now pulled by curiosity as much as caution. They were leaving their comfort zones behind, entering a part of the city few ever dared to go. The streets grew darker, weeds sprouted from cracked sidewalks, trash littered the gutters. They passed abandoned buildings, their windows shattered like broken eyes staring out into nothingness. Buddy stopped again. His ears perked, and he let out a short bark when Lucy hesitated. "Keep going," it seemed to say. "This is starting to get weird," Ryan said, adjusting his glasses, eyes scanning the surroundings. "I'm not used to this kind of stuff." "Weird doesn't even begin to cover it," Michael muttered, his brow furrowed. He still hated the idea that they had left real FBI work behind to follow a dog. But now, even he couldn't deny something was going on. Buddy turned sharply into a tighter alleyway. It was barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side. The silence around them grew heavier. Their footsteps echoed eerily off the walls. Lucy felt a chill run down her spine, but she kept moving. Something deep inside her whispered that Buddy knew what he was doing, that he was taking them where they needed to go. Then they saw it. An old warehouse stood at the end of the alley, towering like a forgotten giant. Its windows were broken, the metal siding rusted and peeling. The gate stood slightly open, creaking in the wind. Vines and weeds clawed at the outer walls. "This is it?" Michael asked in a hushed voice, his eyes locked on the structure. Buddy barked again and ran to the gate, sitting down as if to say, "This is where we're meant to be." Lucy looked at Michael. He shook his head, still reluctant. "If this turns out to be a waste of time, Torres," he warned, "you're going to have to explain yourself." "I'll take full responsibility," Lucy said firmly. She knelt beside Buddy. "Is this it, boy? Is this what you wanted to show us?" Buddy barked again and scratched at the warehouse door with his paws. Michael pulled out his radio. "Team, move in. Eyes open. Be ready." Even with his doubts, he was now on full alert. Meanwhile, Ryan began examining the area. His eyes caught something: the faint tracks of tires in the dirt and footprints that looked recent. "Boss," Ryan said, his voice tense, "this place isn't abandoned. Someone's been here recently. That dog didn't bring us here by mistake." Michael nodded. "Everyone get ready." Lucy's heart pounded as they pushed open the heavy door. It groaned on its hinges. Buddy stayed close, his body tense, as if ready to defend them. The air inside the warehouse was thick, reeking of mold and something worse, something metallic and sharp. The agents raised their flashlights, and the beams cut through the shadows. Then they saw it: rows of cages, rusted metal, stacked high. The sight made Lucy gasp. Inside the cages were dogs, some full-grown, some still puppies, skinny, weak, and terrified. Their fur was matted. Their eyes were hollow. Whimpers echoed in the darkness. Lucy stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Oh my God!" She knelt beside a cage filled with shivering puppies, their small bodies pressed against one another for warmth. Buddy stood beside her, his eyes full of something almost human: pain and purpose. "This is why I brought you here," his gaze seemed to say. Michael and the agent spread out, checking every corner. Raphael, holding his tablet, stopped near a wall. "Boss," he called, pointing to a panel half hidden behind a crate. "There's something here. Looks like it's connected to security systems. I'm pulling the data now." Michael's face was grim. "This is bigger than I thought." Then from the back of the warehouse, a noise, hurried footsteps, metal creaking. Michael raised his hand. "Stay alert. We're not alone." Suddenly, two armed men burst from the shadows. Gunfire exploded in the darkness. Agents dove behind crates and cages. Lucy grabbed cover behind a concrete column, heart pounding. Buddy pressed close to her side. But Buddy didn't stay hidden. As one of the gunmen tried to move around the cages, Buddy leapt. Fur and muscle flew through the air as he sank his teeth into the man's arm with shocking strength. The man screamed, his weapon clattering to the floor. Buddy growled, refusing to let go. Chaos filled the warehouse, and in that moment, one thing was clear. This dog wasn't just a guide. He was a warrior. The distraction gave Lucy the chance she needed. With practiced precision, she rose from her cover, rushed the disarmed man, and pinned him to the cold concrete floor. Her hands trembled slightly, adrenaline surging, but her grip was unwavering. "Good boy," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion as she gave Buddy a quick, grateful pat. He stood alert beside her, eyes still trained on the chaos. Meanwhile, Michael led the agents in an intense, calculated standoff. Gunfire echoed through the cavernous warehouse, bouncing off rusted beams and cracked walls. The firefight lasted minutes that felt like hours until, at last, the final assailant was subdued. The warehouse fell into a tense silence, broken only by the faint whimpers of the rescued animals and the shouts of agents securing the perimeter. Michael turned to Buddy, his normally unreadable face softened with something that resembled awe. "This dog," he said slowly, "has done more today than some agents do in a lifetime." He shook his head, part disbelief, part admiration. Lucy, breath still shaky, smiled as she looked down at the panting dog beside her. "He knew, boss," she said quietly. "He knew we needed to be here." Agents moved quickly to unlock cages and gather evidence. Raphael hunched over the control panel Buddy had led them to, unearthed something monumental. "Boss," he called, eyes wide, "we've got something big here." He turned the screen toward Michael. "It's not just this warehouse. This place is a hub, part of a multi-state animal trafficking network." Michael studied the data grimly, the weight of the revelation settling on his shoulders. The horror they had discovered was not a solitary crime. It was part of something vast and vile. Lucy knelt beside Buddy again, brushing her fingers through the fur on his back. He was tired, but his eyes were sharp, focused, almost knowing. He had not just led them to a crime scene, he had led them to a cause. Thanks to Buddy's silent determination, the FBI now had enough to dismantle the operation from the inside out. And he, once just a stray with nowhere to go, had become something far more. He was not just a dog, he was a hero. The story of what happened spread like wildfire. Headlines blared the tale of the stray who helped the FBI take down an animal trafficking ring. Images of Buddy, skinny, dirty, but fierce and determined, captured the hearts of millions. A few days later, a special ceremony was held at FBI headquarters. The sun beamed down as agents, press, and spectators filled the courtyard. Reporters jostled for position. Cameras clicked. All eyes were on the unlikely star of the hour. Buddy, clean and proud, his fur now gleamed under the sunlight, a blue bandana tied around his neck. He sat calmly at Lucy's side, as if he understood that this moment belonged to him. Michael stepped onto the stage. His usual gruff demeanor had softened, just slightly. "Today," he began, "we celebrate more than just a successful operation. We celebrate courage, instinct, and the undeniable truth that heroes can come in the most unexpected forms." He turned to Buddy, who looked up at him with calm, intelligent eyes. "This dog appeared out of nowhere. No badge, no handler, just determination. And he led us right to the heart of a criminal network. He showed more bravery than many trained professionals." The crowd applauded, their cheers ringing across the courtyard. Michael wasn't done. "And I want to recognize Agent Lucy Taylor." He turned to her with rare warmth. It was her choice to listen, to trust in something others dismissed. Her faith brought us here, and that has made all the difference. Lucy, in her formal uniform, blushed and looked down at Buddy, who sat calmly at her feet. His tail wagged once, as if acknowledging the moment. An agent stepped forward, holding a small golden medal on a deep blue ribbon. Engraved on it were the words, "Heroism and Service. Buddy, four-legged hero." Michael leaned down and gently placed the medal around Buddy's neck. The crowd erupted with applause, and for a brief, magical moment, Buddy smiled. He wagged his tail with such joy that even the most hardened agents laughed out loud. Lucy crouched beside him, her voice soft and full of gratitude. "You deserve this, Buddy. You're amazing." She ran her fingers over his head, and he looked back with that same loyal gaze she had seen on day one. After the ceremony, journalists swarmed to know more. Buddy's story was everywhere, on TV, online, in newspapers. He was no longer a stray, he was a symbol of hope. But for Lucy, he was more than a symbol. He was her partner, her teacher, her friend. He had taught her that sometimes the most important voices are the ones we almost ignore, and that sometimes it takes courage to listen. The investigation Buddy helped launch grew beyond expectations. The documents and drives retrieved at the warehouse led to the arrests of key figures across the country. Warehouses were raided, transport lines shut down, even international connections were exposed. Thousands of animals were rescued. Many found homes. Some had waited a long time for kindness, and now they had it. Buddy's legacy sparked change beyond law enforcement. His story lit a fire in the public conscience. Donations to shelters soared, adoption rates spiked, volunteers poured in, and lawmakers, inspired by the emotional surge, passed bills to increase penalties for animal trafficking and strengthen oversight of animal trade. What had begun with a dog's bark turned into a national movement. At the FBI, minds changed. Michael, once skeptical, began to value intuition over protocol. Raphael, inspired by the bravery he witnessed, signed up for more field operations. And Lucy, now recognized not just as an agent, but as a woman who followed her heart, vowed to keep fighting for those who could not speak. And Buddy? He had a home now, with Lucy, a bed of his own, a life full of warmth and walks and laughter, and love. For the world, he was a symbol. For Lucy, he was a daily reminder that small acts, like following a dog no one else believed in, could ignite a revolution. And after everything, Buddy could finally live the life he had fought so hard to save for others. A life filled with peace, a life filled with purpose, a life where he was no longer alone. He had always deserved better. No more cold, hunger, or danger. Lucy, who had felt that special connection with him from the very beginning, decided to adopt him. Buddy wasn't just a hero or a symbol of courage. He was now a part of her life. The day Buddy entered Lucy's apartment for the first time, he seemed curious, yet slightly cautious. He walked slowly, sniffing every corner as if trying to understand that this place was now his home. The apartment was small but cozy, with basic furniture, a soft rug, and windows that let sunlight stream in. It was near one of those windows that Buddy chose his favorite spot. Lucy had prepared a special space for him, a soft bed, a bowl of fresh water, and new toys she had bought. But Buddy, as always, seemed more interested in being near her than in anything else. He followed her around the apartment, watching her every move as if ensuring she wouldn't leave without him. "Welcome home, Buddy," Lucy said, kneeling beside him. She stroked his head, and Buddy looked at her with those deep, trusting eyes. It was as if he were saying, "I'm finally safe." The days that followed were filled with discoveries. Buddy, who had once lived on the streets, was now experiencing the comfort of a worry-free life for the first time. He had food, water, and, most importantly, love. Lucy made a point of taking him to the park, where he could run freely and play with other dogs. At first, Buddy seemed unsure if he was allowed to simply be happy, but little by little, he began to relax, wagging his tail more often and even playing like a puppy. Lucy also felt her life change. Having Buddy by her side brought an unexpected joy. After tough days at work, she knew she could come home to his warm welcome, with Buddy wagging his tail and jumping with excitement at seeing her. He was more than just a companion. He was a constant source of comfort and inspiration. One day, as the two sat together on the couch, Lucy looked at Buddy and thought about how much his life had changed. From a thin, dirty, stray dog, he had transformed into a beloved hero. But more than that, he had found a home, a place where he was cared for and loved unconditionally. Buddy seemed to feel the same. He rested his head on Lucy's lap and sighed deeply, as if he could finally relax. It was a sound of relief from someone who knew he would never face the streets alone again. At that moment, Lucy realized she hadn't just saved Buddy, he had saved her too. He brought meaning to her life, reminding her every day that even the smallest gestures can lead to extraordinary changes. Now, Buddy lived far from the dangers of the streets, surrounded by love and safety. As Lucy looked at him, she knew they had found something many people search for their entire lives: a true home. Buddy's story became a milestone for everyone who heard it. It wasn't just about a dog or an FBI operation. It was about how empathy, courage, and persistence can change lives. Buddy, a dog who once wandered the streets alone, became a symbol of something much greater, that even the simplest actions can have a powerful impact. Lucy often said it all began because she chose to stop and listen to a dog's bark. To many, it might have seemed like something small or insignificant, but for Buddy, that moment was the difference between being ignored and being heard. And because she had the courage to trust him, a great evil was dismantled, and many lives, both human and animal, were saved. Buddy showed the world that everyone has something valuable to offer, no matter where they come from or how they appear at first glance. His instinct and determination saved lives and inspired change. People who heard his story began paying more attention to their surroundings, thinking about how small acts of kindness could make all the difference. Buddy's message was clear: never underestimate the power of a simple gesture. A glance, a little attention, or an act of courage can spark a chain of events no one expects. Just as Buddy found someone who believed in him, change often begins when someone chooses to care. Lucy's story wasn't just a successful case, it was a life lesson. She learned that listening to her heart and trusting what seemed invisible to others could lead to extraordinary results. And Buddy, in turn, proved that even the most unlikely heroes can make a difference. Today, Buddy lives happily, surrounded by love and security. But his legacy goes far beyond his personal story. He reminds us that courage and empathy have a transformative power. No matter how small our actions may seem, they can create an enormous impact on someone's life. Buddy teaches us that when we choose to act with kindness and courage, we can transform not only the lives of others, but also our own. His story is a message of hope, reminding us that sometimes the extraordinary is hidden in the simplest details, like the bark of a dog asking for help. And so ends the inspiring story of Buddy, an unlikely hero who taught us the power of empathy, courage, and persistence. But now we want to hear from you. What did you think of this journey? Have you ever experienced or heard of a simple gesture that made all the difference? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave a like to support the channel and help spread more messages like this one. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our inspiring and meaningful content. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.